What we saw was an unbelievably optimistic perception of youth on their future. When we asked them the question, how do you feel about your future? They said 60% of the sample said that they see their better days ahead of them. And that compares to 50% in 2020 when we did the survey a little before the big impact of COVID. So that kind of optimism came as a very counterintuitive finding for us. And that kind of governed and kind of dominated our findings this year.
Okay, so young Arabs are feeling more optimistic, more bright about their future. How are they feeling specifically about the economic recovery and their job prospects as we emerge from the depths of the pandemic?
While there is this great feeling of optimism, and that probably, Dan, emerges from the exuberance of youth. Remember, we're talking to young people in the age group of 18 to 24. They are actually very practical and pragmatic about how they look at the future. Some of the obstacles they very clearly identify in a very mature way is the cost of living that's going up, the lack of jobs in the market, the lack of quality access to quality education. They're worried that, are they being educated enough for the jobs of the future? So those are the kinds of obstacles that are coming in their way, and they are clearly saying that the government needs to create the right policies to be able to address these key issues, because young people want to get on in life. They are focusing on what we call kitchen table issues. So, gone are the days of the revolutionary zeal of the Arab Spring of 2011. Today, youth are much more focused on how can they get ahead in life? How can they get a job, start a family, build a home? Those are the kinds of messages we are getting from young people.
The survey also shows that young Arabs still overwhelmingly prefer to work in the public sector rather than the private sector. And I think this is interesting because that's pretty bad news for countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, which are actively trying to incentivize work in the private sector for nationals. Do you think that this preference for public sector work in the region is hurting entrepreneurship or innovation, perhaps?
The truth is that the government sector is where young people have the highest preference for their jobs. Clearly, because government jobs are well paid, the perks are really good, and in most cases, work hours are much reduced versus the private sector. So there is a natural preference to go there. But the truth, Dan, is government is maxed out. They can't create more jobs. But when you really dive a little deeper into the numbers, and when we do the tracking, which is the big benefit of the Arab Youth Survey, because you can track the numbers, you can see that in 2019, 49, nearly half of the Arab youth preferred government jobs. 3 years down the line, in 2021, that has dropped to 42. In fact, in the private sector as well, in 2019, 28% of the youth preferred a private sector job, and that's dropped to 23% in 2021. But where is the preference growing? And that's where the interesting aspect is. 16% of the youth in 2019 wanted to start their own business or join their family to start their own business. That has gone up to 25% in 2021. And that's where what we call a green shoot finding. There are more young people. They don't have the expectation that government or private sector can create those jobs. So they've started to be able to start to get into entrepreneurialism. And that's a fabulous signal for governments, because that's what youth want, the government to be able to get the right policies, organize financial backing for young people to start their own business, and cut red tapeism. And that's what young people have asked for government as well.